they got to know you. If they don't know you, they're not going to you. So to get them to know you, they got to connect with you. You've got to connect with them. If you don't connect with them, what happens? They're going to somebody else they connect with.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou, and boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a true thought leader when it comes to helping businesses maximally up-level their level of leads, sales, and clients. He's also a best-selling author and an all-around good man. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Dan Kuschell. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Nikki, great to be here. Thank you.
Good to have you here, my man. So
I think we should get in the ring and wrestle right now, or maybe we should
let's
a boxing match.
So look, you and I were getting to know each other. We're both in a mastermind together. I'm digging what I'm learning about you. You're becoming a fast friend. And the people in this podcast universe, they listen to this because they want to learn. These are society's great heroes. They're entrepreneurs and freedom lovers. They're not here for me. I'm here every week. They're here for you. But before they can open themselves up to you, they got to get to know you. So tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great Dan Kuschell?
It's been a long journey, Nikki. So the shortest version I can give you is, I was a kid who grew up in the inner city of Detroit.
Wow.
My dad worked at General Motors, and he had some ambition and dreams, and he started his first business, a restaurant bar, and it failed. I was 10 at that time. I got to go through that whole ordeal as a family, bankruptcy. My dad, we ended up on welfare and, all this sort of stuff. And thankfully, my dad was resilient. And, he got regrouped, got back on his feet. And a couple years later, he started his second business because he thought, well, hey, I'll get a franchise because the system is going to be better. And so he did. He got a franchise and he started that business. Now I was 13 and my dad ran that one for a couple years and also it failed. And lo and behold, things worked out. But for me, those were two critical pieces because many times it doesn't matter whether we're good people. Bad things happen to really good people. It doesn't matter if you have a good product, always. It doesn't matter if you serve people at the highest level in many cases. What matters is you got to be able to market it and sell it. And he couldn't. And even today, my dad's got some health challenges, Nikki, and today he even says, I never really learned or mastered what you know how to do. And part of the reason I pursued this whole journey, Nikki, is because I watched my dad go the good blue collar, hard work. He'd give his shirt off of his back like a lot of people. And because he didn't, then my sister got me a role in a marketing company when I was in college to help pay some stuff. And I got so fascinated with the psychology and, why people would buy stuff right away off a phone call or, a TV commercial or radio thing or direct mail, which is what the business I was in all the way back in, this was the late 1980s that I did this. And then I got the itch and I was like, I feel like I've mastered some of this. I felt like I had a timing of some things. And I started my first company in 1992 and we went out and crushed it very quickly, 7 figures in a handful of months. And just as quick as we built it, it caved in as well. And then I went on a journey of a roller coaster. For as much as I'd love to say it was everything I touched turned to gold for a decade, it didn't. I was not hanging out with the best in the world, so to speak. After 10 years, it was a heavy roller coaster ride, a lot of ups and downs, rock bottoms, if you will. And I regrouped and I came up with a couple of concepts that ended up hitting well. And I grew an education company that started with a volunteer and it grew and grew and grew and grew. We got up, over 175 employees in, multiple offices, and we were, generating over 10,000 leads every single day at one point. We were generating over 1,500 clients a week, hundreds of people in our coaching per week. I mean, it was just massive and rapid momentum. I sold that business, and I had a media business that, 8-figure business, kind of a similar growth pattern. And I sold those two companies after a health crisis, Nikki, and I got a chance to, work on my health, because as much as I'd also love to say I had all these amazing habits building my business, I had a lot of bad habits. I ate too much. I was addicted to my company. I gave my wife at the time leftovers. I was on the verge of, having my kids, giving them leftovers. And then I ended up in this hospital situation that ultimately led me to deciding to build my businesses and sell them. And then I started working on some other things. And then I would call it, or resetting what success looks like for me. And, it's a little easier when you cash out and you get an exit, and it's a nice exit and a profitable and all those sorts of things, for sure. But this part of the journey, this last decade plus, or 15 years now, maybe even closer to 20, has been a fun journey of basically building something more by design versus by default or accident. And so here we are today. We get a chance we work with about 20 to 25 private clients at a time to help them grow and scale without sacrificing their health, their families, their relationships. A lot of the lessons we've learned, we've been fortunate, Nikki, that we've had, clients go out collectively. A body of work of the clients we work with have done, over $1 to $2 billion in client growth, which is awesome. And we have a performance model where the better they do, the better we do. So we all get a chance to win and grow together too. That brings us to today.
Dan, that's a hell of a story. So let's kind of turn this into a bit of a case study type of a conversation, because I think this will be a really powerful way to teach what you do to my listener and have them benefit from it. And then have some of those folks, if they like what they hear, potentially want to come do business with you. So let's kind of look at me and my business and what we do. And let's have you bring your genius expertise to bear on what things we could do to like scale and grow more effectively. Because I'll tell you, that's kind of like a top of mind conversation for me right now. I want to learn how to get good at this. I'm okay at this. I'm not like, you're amazing at marketing, lead generation, sales. I'm okay at lead generation and sales. I'm really good at, I shouldn't say sales. I'm really good at sales. Lead generation is something I want to get better at. Marketing is something I definitely want to get better at. So our company is called eCircle Academy. We've been around for 9 years. And our main shtick is we work with solopreneurs, like coaches, consultants, expert-based people, definitely doing under $1 million in sales, mostly doing under $250,000 in sales. Our biggest challenge is, as much as we teach people how to be seen more, we need to be seen more. We need to have more people know who the heck we are. So, Dan, what do we do? Imagine you're having a consult with me. This is an initial meeting. What do we do?
So, a couple of things. We have 5 pillars. I've deconstructed in reviewing thousands of companies, Nikki, like even Apple and Nike and, the NFL and, a bunch of, these bigger brands, and then a bunch of smaller brands that have had success and also non-success. What's the difference? We found there's 5 key pillars. So I'll go through these quickly, and I'm going to come to the second one, which is related to your direct question about, how do we get seen more? So first is the vision and growth plan. So I kind of alluded to it for myself, Nikki, is if I were to say a great exercise for everybody, and there's more to this, but a quick version is, what do you want? What do you not want? Who are you? And what do you stand for? These couple questions bring so much clarity, so you don't end up building something like I did. The mistake I made in my first 10 to 15 years was building a business I felt more trapped in by accident versus on purpose, right? So the vision and growth plan is so critical in the process.
So what do you want? What do you not want? What are the other ones?
Who are you? And what do you stand for?
Those are good questions, man.
Yeah. And they're deep. They're deep. And there's a whole backstory to that, but for sake of time, I'll leave it there because, even that simple extra, as simple as it sounds, okay, damaging confession. I went through that. I ended up in a hospital for 4 days, heart procedure, just after my son was born, a few weeks. My daughter at the time was 2.
Oh.
And it was it was scary. The night before the heart procedure, I had to sign this disclaimer, and I read it to say, you have a 1 in X chance of dying on the table. And it freaked me the hell out, to be candid. And so I literally was writing through the night pieces of the last will just in case, because I was in my late 30s at the time. And I was scared, frankly. And when I came out of it, I've been a person like you, Nikki, like probably a lot of your viewers, your listeners, where I've invested multiple millions of dollars in coaching, consulting, training, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. So I went and, got with one of my coaches. Her name is Christy. And I sat down with her, and she said, well, we need to get clear right now. And so she was the one who really got me to focus on these 4 key questions. And I was going through sessions with her 3 days a week. And I'm embarrassed to say this because, keep in mind, I had been investing a lot, been to some of the best, and actually had clients that were some of the best in the world. But I'd gotten to a place of being trapped or feeling like the tail was wagging the dog. And what ended up happening is I sat in that first session when she asked me the first question, which was, what do you want? I stared at my piece of paper, and I couldn't, frankly, think of anything for me. I was thinking of my 200 or 175 employees. I was thinking of my wife, my kids, everybody else instead of me. And it was hard. And it literally, to fast forward this just a little bit and save a little bit of time, it literally took me a few weeks that I blew off multiple sessions where I felt embarrassed. I felt humiliated. Here I am. I have all this track record and all these things, and I can't come up with a simple solution. Like, what do I want? And then she gave me some, grace. And she says, this, for men, this is not the first time I've ever seen this happen. You're, one of hundreds I've met with at this level that this happens to, related to your identity. And so if I were to say, number 1 is get clear on the identity and also what you truly want, right? In building it, and obviously with some flexibility there, but get clear up front what you want. And then, I go through this exercise now a couple times a year, and especially as fast as things are changing with AI and all the tech stuff, like it's really critical to tune into this because it's so easy. Also, I'm a creative. I don't know about you now. I don't want to put words in your mouth. In the short time, I get the feeling that you're creative. It's so easy today to get so distracted by things with AI and this tool and feel, oh, I'm missing versus clear. And so this exercise really creates a lot of clarity and confidence, and also gives you greater sense of control to stay out of chaos, and also that, fear of missing out or loss. So that's number 1. Number 2.
How much time should you spend answering these questions?
I mean, for me, I per year now, twice a year, I spend, now it becomes more rhythmic as you do it more, right? But the first time, it literally took me 6-8 weeks to go through this process facilitated with and by her. That's where I was so stuck and so trapped in like old way of thinking versus like truly being free to be myself. And I think that's another key to this. Like, I went through a messy divorce like a lot of people do. And, part of the process of getting clear of who I wanted to be with also ties in with this vision and growth plan, Nikki. Your front stage life, at home life is going to be a reflection of the business life. And if you'd have told me, though, that 20 years ago, I would have said that probably is not true. But I've now just been under the hood of so many businesses and people that I've found it to be very, very true. And it'll ultimately show up and unravel, or, in a good way or a bad way, either way. And so my wife today, part of the thing that, I love about her is, why is this working? There's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is she gives me the freedom to be myself at my best. Good. And there's good parts of that as a creative type. And there's also some people can't handle some of that creative genius, stuff that comes with that. And so having someone who understands us becomes really, really critical. And it starts with understanding ourselves, right? So that's number 1. So I would say, an hour, in the beginning, as you're doing each question, put a timer on for 10 minutes and get that focus. But if you get stuck, come back to it, right? Go for a set amount of time. Ideally you get into the flow of writing, and you can just keep going. So I will tend to recommend, Nikki, with any exercise, even physical exercise, start with something like a 5-minute exercise. And then just like if you play a game and said, oh, I'm going to work out for 90 minutes a day. And, after 3 days, people are bailing out. But if you go, I'm going to work out and exercise for 5 minutes a day, that 5 minutes becomes that, blood rush, kind of even like your opening here. People want to keep going just a little. Oh, well, let me go an extra couple minutes. Let me go an extra couple minutes. Let me go. And it becomes flow. And that's, what this process I think can do. So I would recommend make a goal up front, 5 minutes for each question, and then let it flow. And also be willing to let it go to come back to let it flow. That's really, really critical too. So that would be step one. Now to your direct question. How do I get seen more? So there's all kinds of ways, right? There's so many different platforms to do this, but in a simplest sense, we call this the 10-cent trust trigger. That without going viral or posting, like a lot of experts are still teaching this old way of doing things, manual labor, or go post 50, 60 times a day, right? And get seen, get heard, get listened to, all the, that can help. But most people are small, lean businesses, solopreneurs like you're mentioning. They don't have the time or the staff to do that sort of stuff. So what is a newer way, a smarter way to do it? Well, for example, good example, one of our clients, you might know him, his name's Joe. Well, I'm going to call him Uncle Joe for the sake of this story, dear friend. And Uncle Joe had a big manufacturing company and he had no digital marketing really going on before we stepped in and, helped him revamp some things and reposition his business. Well, one of the many things we did is you've got to build visibility. Why? The problem is if you're not seen, if you're not heard, you could have you'll feel like the world's best kept secret, or you'll feel like you're invisible, right? So how do you go from that to visible, right? Highly visible, massive visibility. So like with Uncle Joe, what we did is we just, did a couple topics. We did things like what makes you different than your competitors? Very simple, easy one to just, most people can do that off the cuff in 3 to 5 minutes, which is what we did with Uncle Joe. Another one is, what are the top, 1 to 3 frequently asked questions that our clients have about what we do, right? Those couple really can lead to, 5, 6, 7 mini content pieces. So you create these content pieces in video today. You can also do it in written format if you want, but video is really powerful. And then take that video piece, and yes, you can go put it in, social manually and reels and shorts, et cetera, and the list goes on. But a way we can do this in almost all the platforms, Nikki, with this 10-cent trust triggers, we can take that one piece of content. So imagine you create you've got so much great content. So you take this little 3-minute content piece addressing a problem in your marketplace, a question that someone might be, are you struggling with? Do you worry about? Are you concerned about, right? You record the tidbit for that idea, you put it in the platform, and let's just say you put it in Meta. Well, you put it in Meta, you could literally do it for as little as like $5 a day and target your market, age, demographic, psychographic, interest, behaviors, put that out to them for about $5 a day. And literally in a course of a month, you'll have thousands and thousands of views. Well, we did this with Uncle Joe. We do this with a lot of our clients, different platforms, not just one. We're agnostic to the platform, which is part of what makes us different. However, Uncle Joe ended up having with a series of these, a handful, it was like 7, 8, 9 videos, whatever, over our work together in about 18 months. He had over 3.1 million views with this simple 10-cent trust trigger for pennies, getting in front of his perfect audience. So that creates, and also a big problem that most people have, Nikki, as you probably know, you probably teach in a way with some of the stuff I reviewed of yours. Most people get excited about their market and solving problems, and they rush out there and try to fire hose their market sometimes, right? Well, instead, why not step back? Because the first step we believe in all relationship, not just business, but in all you got to connect with somebody. No connection, no direction, right? And there's no opportunity for a sale. So a lot of, so there's 9 phases we've got in our client journey process. The first one is they got to know you. If they don't know you, they're not going to you. So to get them to know you, they got to connect with you. You've got to connect with them. If you don't connect with them, what happens? They're going to somebody else they connect with. This is the biggest thing. So that's why these visibility campaigns or the 10-cent trust trigger method we're talking about, whether it's manual or paid or a combination of both, really can help people amplify and magnify what they're doing very quickly for a very inexpensive rate. So that's one piece to connect with more people right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Uncle Joe, and again, this wasn't the one thing that he did. We did a whole series of things, and we can talk through the full five pillars if you want.
Yeah.
But this pillar helped give Uncle Joe confidence as well with his company. His team is seeing the views grow and the comments and these sorts of things. And Joe's like, I'm not really doing it. I recorded it once, so it's the idea of one-to-one, manual labor, old way, new way, one-to-many at scale for a couple of dollars a day, literally. And long and the short, Joe ended up, after we worked together with Joe for about just under 2 years, and he had a dream come true scenario happen where he wanted to sell his company and he was able to sell and exit, right? And truly get free, yet have assets, right? Good marketing really should be an asset versus something that's a one-off at the same time. And that's what we were able to help to do there.
See, here's the thing, like where I want to take my business to, I mean, you're asking me, what do you want? Where I want to take my business to is I want to take us to 10 million a year. And I don't want it to be a situation where I'm working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just not into that at this stage.
Yep.
And who am I? I'm a lover of freedom. I stand for freedom for people. I mean, I'm from Iran. You know what's been going on in Iran, and we're standing for the brave people of Iran, the gallant people of Iran, to overthrow the evil regime that they're dealing with. That's super, super important. And I stand for that very, very strongly. And I want to see entrepreneurs win, because I think entrepreneurs are freedom lovers, are the greatest people in our society. I want to see them win, and I want to see me win. I want to see my family, my kids, to see their father achieve something big, something that is not normal for most people to achieve. So a couple of years ago, I got into a health and fitness journey, and I was quite a bit overweight. I weighed 227 pounds, and I wanted to get into phenomenal shape. And with the help of a coach, we did it. Dropped 58 pounds, did a bodybuilding competition, and now I'm actually going for my pro card as a bodybuilder at my age. All of these things, when I first started on the journey, I'm like, this is way out of what I believe most people could do. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure I could do it. 10 million to me represents something like that. So let's say that's that. Now, I got my own podcast. I got 2 podcasts. I go on a lot of shows. I do have a team that puts reels together for me. For each show, I get a reel. It goes out there. I've shot a bunch of other videos and put them up. It's not that I've had, outside of the podcast and the reels, it's not that I've had a strategy that I'm following. So number 2 is, how do I get seen? What would you say to me? What do I do right now?
So yeah, tangible, tactical, practical advice. I would go look at your reels and videos you've created and look which ones have the highest, take your top, I'm going to arbitrarily go pick your top 3 that have the most views and potentially comments from all the ones you got in the last, call it year, right? Or 6 months.
Okay.
And then just make sure they're relevant, right? Because some things become outdated. Make sure they're relevant. I imagine they are. So you take those top 3. What I would then recommend is put get somebody who on your team who knows how to work with these platforms and program it so it gets to your ideal audience, probably coaches and consultants, right? Certain age range that you would want, or your ideal clients. Certain, if there's certain places around the world or local, et cetera, you can identify those. Any other behaviors you would want and list those and get you in front of specifically those people. Literally, you could do that for each video for 3, a minimum of 3 in some platforms. Some are a little bit higher. But I would start with 1 or 2 platforms where basically the $3 to $5 a day campaign with 3 videos, and let that start building up your audience. For a variety right now, what you're doing is in these platforms, you're firing off, not to get into too fancy pants tech stuff, but you're firing off the algorithms in your favor that show you're getting in front of a larger group. A momentum creates momentum. right? In a simple sense. That then kind of leads to steps 3 and 4 in this process, right? Any one of them, this is what a lot of other groups do, is they teach one piece of this thing.
Yep.
And one piece is thing, but it's like all of them connected is really what makes this grow. Like, a mutual colleague that you know of, Kevin, who introduced us, I met him with someone who's a friend and someone I got a chance to meet years ago. He bought an initial program of mine through a speaking engagement I was doing, Joe Polish. And we developed it. And then Joe, I was one of the first people he called when he started the thing that has now become Genius Network. And I was the third member. And I got a chance to see him, and his vision for that initially was only 20. And then it became 40, and then it became 60. And then, I ended up growing and selling my education company and did Retirement 1.0, and then came back into Genius Network after being in it for many years and taking a break in that retirement. I came back and, one of the members were like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm working with private clients." He goes, "You should talk to Joe." And I was like, I didn't know Joe needed any help. And he goes, "Yeah, Joe could use your help." So we sat down, and at the time he had like 67 members or so. And I remember sitting with Joe and similar, what do you want? What do you not want, et cetera. We went through the process of like, what do you want and why? And, how does this translate? And he knew his math very well because he had a primary program, 25 grand to be in it for a year. He wanted to create a 100K program, hadn't been created yet, but he wanted to. And he had a vision of, I want 20 people in it when and if I do it. And then I have this annual event, which is a $10,000 program at the time. It's a little higher now. 10,000, I want to get that thing filled up. At the time I'd come on board, I think he was getting like 7 to 15 people attending besides his members. That was it. And long and the short, we mapped this out, and he had a bunch of assets. So then that led to us doing the connection campaigns, and we had plenty to leverage that, I'm kind of describing. We do this for clients, Nikki.
Yeah.
Right. So some choose to do it on their own. Some have us come in and just do it as a pro. Joe opted to have us come in. We, structured some of these things. Then we led to lead machines, right? That's step 3, lead machines. So what are lead machines? If you've dealt with inconsistent leads or low quality leads, right? Regularly, or the cycles, or slow seasons, some people call it, or slow times, or relying on referrals, right? This is a way to get stability and get, predictability coming every day. So we set this up, and now we set up a mechanism. Different people call these things different names. So to try to keep it as simple, some people call these lead magnets. We believe they're lead machines, and a lead magnet is one piece of a lead machine, because there's all kinds of, even an AI model today can be considered a lead machine, and most people wouldn't call that a lead magnet. So it's all under that structure, though, of essentially, here's the idea. Keep it simple. Move people from those platforms, others, the big ones, Google, Meta, XYZ platforms, and move them to yours, meaning your list. So why? One, yes, you can put an offer in front of them, but we're still not to the place of moving them through the client journey, human relationship journey, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second.
Sure.
Number 2 is, yes, you will make offers, but usually at this stage, in the early stage, taking a cold prospect, especially through advertising versus referrals, which is a whole different approach. They don't trust us yet.
Yep.
They don't respect us yet because they don't know us enough yet.
Yep.
Right. They don't know that we can solve their problems. They're like, prove it. Right. So that takes a little bit of time. Now, conversion numbers for math, for some of you that might be watching right now that are math oriented, you can expect to convert a new lead cold between like 0.5% and as high as, say, 3.5%, depending on your offer.
Okay.
The majority of the sales come in the follow-up steps that I'll talk about, right? But a lot of people think they're losing when they're not converting like massive numbers. But I've got the math of some of the biggest names, and I won't mention the names, but everybody probably in your space, coaching or otherwise, knows the people that are spending the most money, and like people that are putting 100,000, 200,000, 1 million people through a challenge, through a model per month when they do it, right? We've got access to certain numbers to be able to know what the real conversions are, right? Not just hypotheticals, like real numbers, real math. And this really becomes simple, Nikki, in the bigger picture of things. It's not easy, but it's simple. Sure. Because it really just becomes a math equation. that you can reverse engineer based on what you want, what you don't want, and all those sorts of things, right? So the lead machines are a way to move them from out there to move them to your list. Most importantly, yes, you will get some sales, like I mentioned, but the majority of it is now you're going to nurture, deepen, and follow up in the relationship. And this is another piece that most people get frustrated by or miss, because they try to rush the sale. And then what do? Instead of building a relationship, they actually push them out of the relationship.
Sure.
Right. So step one, vision and growth plan. 2 is connect with connection campaigns specifically. Step 3 are lead machines, right? To move them out there to build the relationship. And that leads to step 4, which are education-based conversion events, right? So for your business, like now coming back tangibly to your business. And again, without knowing all the workings of your team and who you have, who you don't have, but like my business that I grew and sold, the education company, we grew it up to over 20 million a year. You know, I had ultimately a whole staff of customer service people that literally all day long, they would take the leads that would come in and they would do a rapport building process. And then they'd play an audio at the time. It was our presentation. And then they would have someone that would make the offer to them and convert them, right? Some said yes, some said no, some said later. And then, you know, we continued this process on an ongoing basis, and we're generating hundreds and hundreds of sales per week in our coaching, right? By using the education-based conversion model. So here's where a lot of people go wrong with their education-based conversion model as we view it. A lot of people go, oh, I only want to do online sales. Yeah. Other people go, I only want to do one-on-one phone calls. Well, what if you did both, like one-to-one and one-to-many, and combine online and offline to do both? Like, there's magic in that. Part of what helped me, and we were way ahead of our time in our book, and I think you got a copy.
Yeah, it just came
in like chapter 17. Chapter 17, I think we talk about the Phoenix model, right? Part of the Phoenix model that we talk in there is how we turn customer into actual scripts right in the book that we gave them. And what was fascinating is most of our leads at that time were also coming in online first. We'd have a certain number that would convert, but then our team would just follow up with just being a human being, and we had exponential conversions on it, which was amazing. Then on top of that, when we did make initial sales, we had someone follow up with those initial sales and do an I love you call on the back of it. Hey, Nikki, it's Dan. And I just wanted to check in. I noticed you got started with the XYZ program. Want to make sure you got access to everything. Just want to reiterate how you can reach us. If you have any question, you go to help at ... break, whatever the URL is, right? Just to confirm, you should see this on your credit card. Saying it was an I love you confirmation call. And then as a segue, our customer service team would go, hey, Nikki, by the way, while I've got you on the line, let me run an idea by you. If it works for you, great. If not, no problem. And they would do an offer to something that complemented what they got for, usually a couple $100 extension. And we would literally get 4 out of 10 that we talked to that would say yes. So we were able to take an online sale and turn it into an online offline experience. And this is how we built up valuation in the business, because we were squeezing the lemon in a really cool, elegant way. I wouldn't say it was perfect. There's never been a perfect model, I don't think. Right. But if you think
squeeze.
Yeah. And so education-based conversion, what does this really mean? It means calls. That's an experience, education-based conversion opportunity. Online mechanisms. It could be a video. It could be a webinar. It could be in our program, we got about 75 or 80 different ways someone could do it, but you tailor it to you. Like your strength, as I view it for you, like you're an amazing presenter. Like a lot of our clients will set up a training. Right. We just had a client of ours, Brad, he had 494 people register for a training on whatever day it was last week, Thursday. No, it was, Tuesday. It was Tuesday. Last week, at the time we're doing this, he had 494 people register, right? He had 190 of them show up, which is above average show up. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We do a lot of stuff with that. And regardless of who was on or who wasn't on, he ended up having, over 100 phone calls booked for his team. Wow. To learn more about the offer. He'll probably end up with, 12 to 20 sales or whatever for his premium services that he does. And some people will get some lower tiered stuff. and everything in between. And some of it will be purchased online, right? So it's using online, offline together, not one or the other. This is a big problem. So education-based conversion events are a great way to go deeper, shorten sales cycles. It also ties into a new report I believe Google did just at the time of this, about 6 months ago. They call it the Google, you've probably heard of it, Nikki, which is the Google 7-11-4 rules. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so the Google 7-11-4 rules go something like, I'm going to give you the very generic version. You increase conversion exponentially when they consume 7 hours of content of yours, have 11 interactions through 4 different platforms, right?
Oh.
Here's another problem and why these vision, growth plan, connection, lead machines now leading to education-based conversion events are working is because it's a multi-spoke experience. If you can picture a wheel with spokes, it's a multi-spoke experience that's engineered for it. It also shortens the cycle, right? You probably know a lot of coaches, a lot of experts. They do a webinar every quarter to 6 months or a challenge or something.
Yeah.
Great way to go. But what if you could actually collapse that time frame down and have something going on about every 2 weeks? Either that was robotic, meaning it was an evergreen, not relying on you doing the manual labor, or a hybrid of live plus an evergreen type model, right? So education-based conversion events shorten sales cycles. They help feed people into that, 7-11-4 rules that Google has, validated with billions of data points, billions of dollars in spend per month from their marketers to collapse time and be able to provide and add value to people, if not be infinitely valuable through a good experience in the process. So there's more to this, but I'll stop there.
So Dan, I got a few ideas here in listening to you, which I think would be valuable for you and frankly for me. One is, I would love to do a series of interviews with you, and maybe, not have it be every week because I got to mix up the content, but release them every 2-3 weeks. And we could map out some of these concepts and go into them more deeply. And then obviously I'll make sure that my team gives you all that content so that you can use it and purpose it as you see fit, as well as we'll do it with our podcast and so forth. And secondly, honestly, I don't know if I'm a good fit for you to be a client of yours or not at this stage, but I sure as hell would like to look into seeing how we can collaborate, because there's a lot you're teaching me right now that I should learn. I mean, just bottom line, I need to learn this. And I'm listening to you talk about Joe Polish, and I go, he's a guy I admire. I'm actually going to get to meet him. He's going to be speaking at the Transformational Leadership Council, where I'm speaking as well in July, late July 23rd through 28th in Quebec. I'm excited to meet him. Since you know him personally, I'll even ask you if you could make a personal introduction and say, hey, this is a friend of mine and he's going to be speaking at the same event as you. I thought the two of you guys should meet. You know who the heck you are. But that whole model, yeah, I like it. I want to think of doing my business in that fashion. I want a certain number of clients. What would get us to 10 million plus a year in business? Well, we've got a sales accountability program for coaches that don't like selling and are not very good at it, and we get them to be good at it. So I want to get that to at least 100 members. We've got a thought leader, branded thought leader immersion workshop, which teaches people how to take their IP and turn it into something that lets them stand out. Want to get at least 100 people in that. There's an annual program we have. I want to get 100 people in that. And then at one point, I'd had a big kind of like Joe's 100K offer, and we had 3 people in it. That's about as big as it got. And then we let it go because, 3 people wasn't enough to make it work. But I like 100 people in that. That'll be a spectacular business. So what do you say? Would you like to do something like this? Would you like to do these?
Let's discuss it. It sounds exciting. And this is a part of our wheelhouse, right? And, so I'll give you another little exercise more related to the vision and growth plan, Nikki. And again, we can sit down separate of this and talk about
let's do
look
it.
at working together, because Our goal with a potential candidate is to work with a client actually 18 to 24 months, not be there permanently. We're there to build a system of marketing so that it's an A-level system, and then a B-level person can come in and carry it forward for you, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the magic of what we do. And then we have a hybrid model, which is a fee plus performance, right? So the better you do, like our highest value client, we help them grow by over 10 million. We've been compensated as a company about $1 million for helping them grow. We believe
Dude, that's
we should
totally fair.
yeah, right. And we've had like a client where we just been working with him 6 months. We've helped him grow by he's on track for 3 million in growth for the year. And we've only been there 6 months so far, right? We started at whatever it was. I don't want to give you a wrong number, but approximately. So this could be a little off, but as I recall, Brendan was about 200 grand. We just took him and we started working with him at the beginning of this year. He just went over 550 grand a month. And the month isn't even over yet. Like we still, at the time we're doing this, still have a few more days. And so he's totally excited because he's never had this influx of leads before or whatever the case. And
that's been my biggest problem is consistency with leads. So I go on podcasts and I get leads that way. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's amazing. I'm good at teaching people how to do it. And I think it's a valuable thing for a coach, especially a coach who's getting started, doesn't have a ton of money to throw at ads, that kind of stuff. Going on podcast is low to no cost. You know what I'm saying? And the way I teach it, you build a relationship with the host. You and I talked about this. For low to no cost, you could get 30, 40, 50 leads like that coming your way in a year. That's awesome, right? You can do some good things with that. But man, I want 50 leads a week, bro. I want 50 awesome leads a week. That's really where I ought to be. You're right. I'm a good presenter. That's definitely a skill set of mine. The other thing is I'm super smart. I'm really, really creative. I come from good stock. Like my father was damn near genius level IQ. My mother as well. They're, hardworking Iranians. They taught me the value of studying and reading. And I read like a fiend, man. I've read 100 books a year plus. For the last 6-7 years, I've read over 4,000 books in my lifetime. I'm probably approaching 5,000 really right now. And those are my strengths. And my other big strength, like you, I love people and I love seeing good people win. So I get behind them and I believe in them. I give them some encouragement, all that stuff win. Lead flow, like really, seriously, like a business. Like as a one-on-one, 100 leads a year is great, okay? But I have bigger ambitions than that, man. We need 50 leads a week for us to be where we need to be. Do you agree with what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, if that's what you want, right? And this is what a problem I see. It's obvious you want that, right? But I want to also speak to some of your viewers and listeners, right?
Yeah.
They may be happy with just a 6-figure business and just them and here's the thing is you're watching this right now.
Yeah,
whatever it is you want, be clear on what you want. Now, I'll challenge you to stretch your growth because it's a fun thing to grow and challenge yourself. And if you're not growing, sometimes you're shrinking. I'm sure Nikki has shared with you as you follow him. But at the same, in his own way, however, the key is get clear for you and be okay with whatever that is for you. Be okay with it. Like damaging confession, Nikki. I built these couple giant 8-figure a year companies. Okay. When I sold my companies, this business has been a boutique business and it's 7 figures, right? But I haven't pushed it to get to 8 figures for this business up to this point. The reason being is like you, I started focusing on my health. That was important. I wanted to be more present as a husband when I got married to my beautiful best friend and partner, T. I wanted to be present as a dad, not just in words or not even just occasional time. I wanted to be available that like when my daughter wanted to be in volleyball, I could be a coach for her. When my son got into football or soccer, I could be a coach for her. And I did. I was able to do these things, but now they're at that journey. I'm getting ready to put the gas down on the pedal. My wife's fully retired now. And although she would say, well, my job is really to manage him because that ain't easy, right? For creative. So, but she knows very well. She's just great at it. It's one of her superhuman tricks. However, as you're watching, whatever it is for you, right? First of all, here's the truth. It starts with a dream. It starts with a belief that you can, and if you're in Nikki's world, Here's the truth. You can. What? There are billion-dollar coaches, billions. They make billions. Why not you?
Amen.
Right? And if you're working with Nikki and his team, why not you? Right? Whatever that is, 8-figure, 9-figure, 10-figure, 7-figure, 6 figures, and be okay, whatever that is for you, and design it on purpose, not on accident. That's so incredibly important. And then it just becomes engineering. Like you named all your and I would like to do this with you individually, Nikki, a little bit, but I'll give you, so others can kind of feed off of this guidance for their business. All of those names of the programs you mentioned, I want 100 in this and 100 in that and 100 in this. Here's the next facet of that. Now put the math to it for the year. So those 100 and those, I think there were 4 you mentioned, and then you had an idea of 100K pro. How many? And then what is the revenue per program?
I did that while you were speaking. So it's
And now what does that look like in a year? Right? This is a big thing we also see. Like you just did the exercise here intuitively. You probably teach this to your students. But one of the problems we see is most people go, oh, I want to build a 7-figure business. I go, well, show me on paper. Like, what does that look like? How many of how many? I regularly will use the term, how many of how many? How many clients? How much are we charging? And what does that look like for a year as an estimate? And obviously these things are estimate, but it starts to get creative when we start estimating. Like, for example, we do that with, like Joe's program. He goes, I want to have 100 people in the annual event that pay that are non-members. Okay, so you do that math, 100 times 10 grand
$1 million. Yeah.
That's $1 million in revenue. And then he goes, at the time we were sitting down, he goes, I got 67 members. And he goes, I want to have 100 members in Genius Network. And so 67 from 100, of course, you can do the math on that. That's 33, right? 33 people. And 33 times 25,000, that's about
that's 825,000. Dude, I have a mind like a steel trap for revenue, bro.
That's amazing, right? And so here's a damaging confession too. We didn't hit the goals. We blew right by it. We took it from 67 members to just under 300, 25K members. That supply and demand created the ability that he, started the process to introduce people and invite people into his 100K program. And then his annual event, before we had come in, and then again, it took a minute with stuff, right? And by the way, I also want to say this with all of our clients, including if we get a chance to work together directly, Nikki, like we're a piece of the puzzle. Like I didn't do this for Joe. We did this one together. It was collaborative. You, Joe, our clients, we all have a different series of, call it superhuman genius things.
Superpowers.
Assets, right?
Superpowers.
And assets.
Yeah.
So what one of my superpowers is taking people's leverageable assets and making them leveraged fully, so they're not sitting there collecting dust. We were able to help do that with Joe with his podcast and some different things. Literally, here's the simple, it'll sound simple and it wasn't easy to do what I'm going to describe, but the year before we had come in, Joe had roughly like 40 candidates for the whole year. And he had said, most of this seems to be built on me and me having to go get sales. We put these processes in place. He brought in partners. We're lucky to have, Joe was lucky to have a partner like Dan Sullivan do some promoting and add spokes to the wheel beyond just like his referrals. It became Dan and it became some others and it became paid media and Meta. And, we built spokes. The more spokes you have coming in, the more visibility. Comes back to that original question you asked. We took them from, call it 40 candidates a year to 100 a month. And that's one of the biggest reasons we went through hockey stick growth. Amen. Right? And helping them do that. And this happens time into Brendan, who I just gave the example, very similar for his niche in his industry, in the service industry. We were able to help do something similar. So Amen. Vision and growth plan, we've covered connection, the importance, lead machines, education-based events. And, we kind of already hit on the idea of the 5th pillar, which is, essentially go deep. Go deep, right? Even from the jump. Take the content you've got, identify the top 3, that's going deep, right? You probably have lead machines right now. Like most clients have tested lead campaigns and, lead magnets and so look, what's the number 1 that brings you or 2 that bring you potentially the best right fit kind of clients. Number 3, education-based events, right? How, be willing, and as you're watching, you're part of Nikki's community, be willing to talk to your clients, right? One way or another, talk to them. Like a great exercise for every business to do. I'm a firm believer in this, Nikki, that ties in all five actually, is talk to a real paying client and then ask them, hey, why did you decide to work with us? And then ask other things like, what are some of the big problems you're facing every day? And listen to how, and ideally record it, right? And really, as you're a coach or a consultant in Nikki's world, pay attention to the way they're saying exactly their words, the way they say it, not the way you say it or I say it or our
Oh, yeah, we teach that to people. You got to listen to people. You got to use their syntax. And it's funny you mentioned that. We asked this of our clients a few months ago, and we asked them to go ask their clients this. And I can tell you the common theme of what all our clients said, look, you know your stuff, you're good at what you do. There's some version of that, that's all good. But they all said, what really, like they said, the reason that I'm really with you is I get it's not just about the money for you. I get you really care. And the way one of them said, you really give a shit, right? And they said, that's why I pay you what I pay you. Because, we're not cheap. We're not cheap, right?
Reassuringly expensive.
Reassuringly expensive. Maybe, Joe Polish charges a little more than I do with some of his stuff, but we're in the lower end of that ballpark. Let's put it like that, right? So our cheapest programs, $3,000, our average programs like $8,000-10,000, and our high-end programs like $40,000, $50,000, something in that neighborhood, right? So people stay with us and they're like, yeah, you're good people. I know that when I falter, I can lean on you and you're going to be there, and all that's really, really good. And I think that's fantastic. And one of the reasons I decided to join Kevin's mastermind is because I'd been doing things in a very similar way for a long time. Like the podcast was a new innovation, and it was wonderful and it worked. But how I'd been going about getting leads was generally I go on podcasts, I do reach out to my own network, do some referrals, I go speak on some stages. There wasn't a real cohesive, tried and true strategy. It was a seat of your pants. It is been a seat of your pants, with some exceptions, like I said, podcasting and guesting and all that. And I wanted to join Kevin because I saw that he was getting business through relationships. And relationships are my jam. I wrote a book about it. I mean, you checked it out, right? One of my books, Power Connecting, how to activate profitable relationships by serving your network. Serving your network, that's important. And so I wanted to join his group to learn from him, but also to be exposed to people who could open my mind to think differently and maybe collaborate with them in ways that will help us take the leap to the next level, because that's what I'm looking to do. I'm 57. I'll be 58 this summer. By the time I'm 60, 61, 62, I want to be solidly in that 10-figure realm, not 8-figure realm, 8-figure realm solidly, and then take it from there.
I mean, that's amazing, right? And as you're watching or listening what Nikki is sharing with you, I mean, one, just get a grasp of how vulnerable he is to kind of take you under the
Vulnerable is a bad word. I want to just say this. Vulnerability is a word we should be very careful about, okay? And I'll talk about that offline. Talk about open. We'll use open.
That's a better. I will agree.
Vulnerable is like somebody can come and hit you. No. We don't want to be vulnerable, man. We want to be open.
That's a good distinction. I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah. And so, think about it. Nikki's taking under the hood of his car to share with you where he's at. Where does he want to go? And the only way he's going to get there, by the way, is helping you as you're listening or watching right now. Amen. And, to kind of piggyback on what you brought up about, people know you, right? And they know that you care. Like that, like as you're a coach or, I hope you really tune into that, because it can sound so simple. And I'll say one of the mistakes, again, I've got a lot of mistakes I've made, Nikki, doing this. My 30-some years. My early years were really a mess. And part of the reason they were a mess on my own doing. And I, was so focused on trying to go build a 7-figure business, an 8-figure business, and chasing the money, we'll say, right? Yeah. That I made some mistakes in that regard, from a transaction point of view. And I'm not proud of it. However, I had a choice back then when I was there, is to go, okay, I'm going to dwell on this and I'm going to be shameful and guilty, or I recognize I made the mistake, make sure not to do it again. And now how can I make sure I don't make those same mistakes? And then how do I help others avoid those painful lessons too? Right. And that's so critical, right? And that's what great coaches and consultants really can do for people, is help, see the blind spots, get unstuck, help you see around corners, help you avoid mistakes. And I know, you're working with someone like Mickey, that's what he wants to help you do on this journey, that the way for him to get to that 10 million plus eight type 9-figure range is by helping you, right? Grow that ladder too. So,
I appreciate that, brother. Amen. So listen, someone's interested in finding out more about you, your company, your books. Where do we want to send them?
I think the easiest way is, if you want to get a deep dive into these strategies, which, by the way, we also call, we wrote the book on this, direct response branding, is, basically it's the new model for exponential business growth. It's not branding by itself, and it's not direct response marketing by itself. It's bringing the two together. And this specifically, big brand concepts of these things for small business, we consider small business under 10 million a year. So if you're in that range, this is a great playbook, literally, of recipes, tools, strategies. We got a bonus package. If you want to go get access to this book, we'll get you the audio book. I'm going to give you a special link because of our connection here with Nikki, and you can go to breakthrough3x.com/Nikki. That's breakthrough3x.com/Nikki. You can get the book free. You just handle the shipping and processing. There'll be some options that you can, if you want to go deeper with a few other things, feel free to grab those. But go to breakthrough3x.com/Nikki, get the tools, get the checklist, and all the tools that go with it.
Awesome. Awesome. So we like to end off each episode by asking you, our guest expert, what are your top 3 expert action steps? These are your 3 best pieces of life, business, success advice in bullet point, truth quickly form that my listener can use to take his or her life, business success to the next level. What say you?
What say me? Number 1, I'm going to lean on an Indian proverb. He or she who has his health has 1,000 wishes. He or she who does not has just one. You can have all the money, you can have all the notoriety, but if you don't have your health, what do you got at the end of the day? That's number 1. Number 2 is build and get clear on the business you want, you don't want, based on who you are and what you stand for, which we covered early on in the segment. That'll be number 2. Number 3, I'm biased in number 3, is whether it's with us or someone, find a way to use and leverage the tools that are available today before it's too late. Direct response branding, again, whether it's us or others, put the pillars in place, those 5 that we've talked about today, and think of your business like spokes. The best way to build and protect your business is to build spokes in the wheel in a smart, strategic way. And an easier way to build those spokes is to work with a pro and not just an average Joe.
I love it. That's actually a good name for the episode. Work with a pro, not just an average Joe. That's a great name for the episode.
Awesome. Well, let's do that.
Dan, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to having you back. God bless you. Really, really loving our friendship, brother.
Same here, Nikki. I look forward to big things ahead for both of us.
Ditto. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's amazing guest, the one and only Dan Kuschell, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Google Play, Rumble, YouTube, or what have you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.